So, welcome to this latest episode of MENable Matters, the podcast for the global movement for men's mental health for the automotive industry. I'm Steve Whitten, and I am joined by a fabulous guest today. Now, this lady has a little bit of an introduction, but I am absolutely delighted to say that not only is she, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the country, she is also a very, very good friend, and she is one of the founder members of MENable, no least. So, her LinkedIn profile actually says that she helps stifled professionals who are ready for a career change and to rebel and escape the corporate sludge and take a leap of faith into a free range life on their own terms. So delighted to welcome to MENable Matters, Emma Shaw. Emma, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What a wonderful introduction.
There's a lot there.
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
So go on, tell us a bit more about who you are and where you're from and what you do and all of that stuff. And
I
if
will
you can
do
make that
so.
last about 20 minutes, that'd be great. I'll sit back and relax.
Fantastic. Sounds like a game show this now. Who you are, where you come from. So I am living in Warrington in sunny Cheshire right now. And from this location, I am helping people to make better lives, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I live here with my little dog Percy, who you know
He may
very well
join us fairly
already.
soon,
He
actually,
may
mightn't he?
well join us.
Yeah,
He'll
okay.
probably chip in with some barking at some outdoors situations any
Yeah.
moment now, because of course that would be perfect.
Mhm.
And so yeah, just me and him, and we are together. No, just me. I am I'm helping people to really just sort of get out of the crappy corporate world that frankly I've experienced, and I think a lot of people are really wanting to get out of now, particularly in 2020. It's not a coincidence, is it, that people are getting 2020 vision and finding that their lives perhaps aren't what they want them to be.
Yeah, it's been a challenging year, in fairness, hasn't it? And continues to be. It looks like it's going to be that way for some time. And it's brilliant to be working with you on the MENable project. So,
Yeah.
what's brought you to where you are now, then, Emma? Give us a little bit of a background and history of you, then, and how you ended up specialising in that area.
Well, it's been a twisty turny path. I am 42 years old now, and it's been a good sort of 20 plus years of figuring out really who I am, and what I'm meant to be doing in the world. And in a smaller nutshell as I can kind of give you, I guess the last 20 plus years has been a process of me changing from being a victim of life and really just sort of figuring out how to be better at tackling life and allowing the river of life to kind of sweep you along the way it's meant to. And part of that journey was very much living in or sort of working in big corporate businesses. And whilst I could, play the game, so to speak, and sort of survive, what I realised was that I was just getting drowned and dissolved in this, what I call the corporate sludge, and being a much smaller version of me, and that actually the corporate world doesn't want me or the full version of me. It wants me to compromise my values, and I'm just not okay with that. So I've been self-employed for over 4 years now. In that process, I have moved into coaching, which is something I've always done anyway. And I now help people to do that escape thing that I did. So I describe myself as an escape plan, or an exit strategy for people to get out of that career cage that's just keeping them a smaller version of who they are, and asking them to be someone that they don't like. And that's just massively important to me, because I've, in my journey, I've become a much happier version of me, and my purpose is to help people do that for themselves as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I mean, how big an issue is that then? I mean, I was in corporate life a while ago, and obviously I know you were as well, not that long ago. So, from the people how big an issue is it that this career cage situation and corporate sludge then?
I think for some people it's a very big issue. It depends who you are, obviously, because there are lots of people who survive and thrive in the corporate world perfectly adequately. and that's absolutely fine. It's horses for courses, isn't it? But I think particularly this year it has become a bigger thing, because lots of people are asking questions of their lives, but also who they are, and who they are within a corporate entity is not always who they truly want to be. And I think, you know, it's just becoming, I'm noticing it becoming a much bigger thing. I think businesses themselves, there are some unique special businesses out there who are very much driven by contribution as opposed to profit first. MENable, you know, becoming one of those. And if you're lucky enough to work for an organization like that, and that aligns with your values and your purpose, then it's fantastic. But it's very, very rare. And most companies are driven by profit. Yes, there's corporate social responsibility, but it isn't always that as a priority. It's normally about share, you know, dividend, and, you know, wider organizational objectives and all that kind of stuff. But I think we, as a society, we have been brought up to believe that we need a secure job, we need a boss, you know, we need a career that follows certain rules. And I now think this year particularly, people are waking up to the fact that those rules were not made for us, for our generation and generations, you know, coming through now. Those rules don't have to apply if you don't want them to.
Yeah, no,
I'm not breaking the law or harming people.
yeah, no, I absolutely
On
love
their
that. I
own.
mean, I'm gonna ask you in a minute about the free range life on their own terms, which I think is a fabulous phrase. But um, before that, I mean, what do you think are the kind of mental health implications then of people that feel they can't break out of that corporate sludge? You know, and of
Mm.
course, we should probably also mention that for many people, it's actually okay to stay in a corporate
Oh,
life, isn't
of
it? You know,
course.
that's the point. I think you said a little while ago is about what's okay, and if
Yeah.
it's not okay, that's the bit you need to look at. So what are
Hmm.
the implications for mental health in all of in sort of that not being okay bit then?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. There are massive implications, certainly for me. There, you know, when I was really deeply in that, I found that I was being chipped away at. I was allowing myself to be chipped away at. It was massively affecting my confidence. Um, I was normalizing some very toxic behaviors and a very toxic culture. And when I came out of that, it actually took me a long time to repair that. And there's, you know, there is a hangover that comes from that. Whilst I was in it, I had a period of time where I was suffering from panic attacks, which isn't something I naturally experience. I was on beta blockers for a long time. Every time I thought about work, even at the weekends or in the evenings, I felt physically sick. That chipped away at my mental health so severely that it just, what tends to happen is that whilst people want to get out and they know they want to do something different and they know what they want to create, a life that they choose, quite often they've been in that environment for so long that it takes away some of their confidence, their self-esteem. And, you know, it also gives them a real sense of fear that keeps them in that situation. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome.
Right, right. What happens though if they're stuck? You know, if they're in this corporate
Mm.
environment, but you know they've got themselves into a position externally. You know, maybe it's family, mortgages, kids. You know, one income, all that. May you know all those sorts of things where they're kind of just stuck. Uh,
Yeah.
what can they do then? Because you know maybe they've got one eye on, I'd really love to get out of this and do something else, but the reality of it is you can't.
Yeah, and that's certainly what people will say to themselves. The reality is, I can't. And actually, the first thing to do is to question what's real and what's true, because there are so many people out there who take that leap and they make a success of it. And you know, the classic excuse at the moment is, well, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, worst time possible to take the leap. I was speaking to someone the other day, in fact, who said, I was just about to go self-employed and then the pandemic hit. Well, unfortunately, you know, for those people, that is, if I'm being brutally honest, not true,
Mm,
because there are many people who thrive in very difficult economic times, and there are also many people who fail in very good, peak, healthy economic times. And the difference is the mindset. But of course, I absolutely acknowledge that when you've got a family to look after, you've got bills to pay, you've got a mortgage, you've got responsibility and pressure, it's very hard to see your way through that. And quite often it takes somebody to ask you some pretty tough questions around, well, how long are you prepared to do this for? And one of the things that I find makes a big difference to people is to find a motivation that's actually bigger than them.
Mm.
And if that's about role modeling to your kids what life should be like, then great. If that's what works for you, then great.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just sticking your head above the parapet and having somebody to tell you, this is the right thing to do, this is okay, we're going to guide you through it. And you don't have to take that massive leap of faith and just go, do you know what, I quit my job. And I mean, I kind of did that. I got made redundant and I had no buffer zone whatsoever. I had no money whatsoever. And I just thought, right, this is it, I'm going to do it. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend everybody do that. There are ways and means, and there is a pathway to do that allows you to create this free range life in a way that is not as high risk as perhaps you might imagine.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about this phrase free range life then, because I love that. And free range life on their own terms. What does that mean for you?
So it's a philosophy that I was introduced to a few years back, and very much popularized by a lady called Marianne Cantwell, who has a book and she does a lot of work on this with people. So free range life is really about finding what makes you happy, what drives you, what your purpose is, and then finding a way to monetize that. And it's very different from the traditional version of I'll find something that I like and then get a job that is in that field. So Marianne's example is that she knew she loved traveling, she knew she loved writing, but she also likes good coffee and sitting in coffee shops. So the typical thing would be, we'll get a job as a travel writer. And actually what she decided was that that's not really what she wanted to do. What she wanted to do was to help people understand how to create a life that they wanted and to be able to do it from anywhere. So she writes from a beach or in a coffee shop, or she goes all around the world and just does what she loves from anywhere she wants. And she combines everything to have this free range life that just does not adhere to the usual rules that we've all been brought up with.
Yeah.
And it's, I love that philosophy, this concept that you don't have to do Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that you don't have to, have a boss if you don't want to, that you can just we are in this amazing world right now where you can just make a business out of anything. My job is the mindset barista. That's a role I've completely made up out of nowhere, but that's how people see me now, because that's just the rule that I've made for myself.
Yeah, no, I get that, and that does work. I mean, I see a lot of people doing exactly that, on LinkedIn or whatever, and you're absolutely spot on. You've got to have that belief in yourself first, haven't you, to expect anyone else to.
Yeah.
But on the balancing side of that, Emma, I mean, many people are very happy and very comfortable in their corporate life, and would probably be uncomfortable at us describing it as sludge or a career cage. So how does this free range life work, if you are somebody who's, quite content to spend the next 10, 15, 20 years, building up the pension pot and working in the same place? How does that work for them?
That's a good question. I suppose it's about a philosophy, isn't it? It's about an outlook in life. There's, if having a, what I would call a proper job where you do proper work, if that's what lights your fire and it's genuinely making you happy, and it's allowing you to do the things you're really, really good at, and that's massively rewarding, and you're in your zone of genius with that, then that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That if that's your choice and you've genuinely chosen to do that, then brilliant. And there are lots of other aspects of your life other than your work that can be free range. how you do everything in your life, if you want to, can be by your own rules and not somebody else's.
Do you know, I love that, because actually one of the founding principles of MENable was about us disrupting cultures across the automotive
Hmm.
industry, and particularly talking to senior leaders and encouraging that within their businesses. And I think what you've just said there actually speaks to those senior leaders who could encourage the people in their teams to have this kind of free range lifestyle, and maybe be a bit more entrepreneurial and a bit more business oriented and a bit more commercially focused actually in the job and in the business that they're in.
Yeah, exactly. And I if I am lucky enough to have a company when I grow up, that has employees and teams and so on, I want to be the kind of leader that brings people into the organization that have their own purpose, their own values, but that they align to the contribution I'm trying to make to the world, and that they are deeply fulfilled by that and psychologically and emotionally connected to that,
Mm,
because it absolutely sings to their heart and soul about what they're here on the planet to do as well. And that doesn't have to only exist in small owner managed companies. That can exist in big corporate entities. The difficulty is, because most corporate entities are controlled by shareholders' desires, and they are, there's lots of subcultures and complex dynamics and layers and politics and red tape and blah blah blah. Because all of that exists, if that's deeply entrenched, it's very hard to turn the tide. And I tried for many years to help businesses do that, and I think a lot of people within those businesses want to do it, but after a while they lose the fight, and that really saddens me. I've seen that so many times. I've seen good people have the fight taken out of them because it's too hard to change the direction of a tsunami.
mm,
But it's not impossible, and I have faith that that's possible out there. I'm not That's not where I sit anymore.
yeah,
There
yeah,
are lots of other people that can do that, but I think from a MENable perspective, the way that what you've created as a concept, and what we have conversations about all the time, particularly, is exciting to me, because it is a disruptor, and we've made a decision from the beginning that we're going to have those challenging conversations, even if they're difficult to have,
yeah, yeah,
because they're difficult to have. And
yeah.
that's
And
incredibly important.
you're spot on. And I mean, well, as we've spoken about a lot, I'm the one that's had a lifetime in the industry, and it's always got to me that it's very much driven by mass production, which then becomes targets, which then becomes objectives, which then becomes performance. And if you take that down to a dealership level, it's all about how many cars have we sold this month, how many hours have we sold in the service department, and that in turn puts the people in those positions under an awful lot of pressure. And I think
Oh yeah.
that's a contributor, not all of it, but a contributor to why men in particular have never opened up about their mental health, because it's been, be strong or be gone kind of mentality in a lot of
Mhm.
cases. And, we've got some big organizations in the automotive industry that they're not proud of it, but their staff turnover is in excess of 50%.
Yeah,
And that's what we want to disrupt, isn't it?
it is. I think I'm fascinated by this concept of men's mental health, because it's the gender norm stuff. It's the way that we are all brought up, but particularly men. Um, it's so confusing. It must be incredibly confusing to be a dude in this climate. We've not try to fix everything. This day and age, really, really difficult, I think,
Mm,
to the mixed messages men get. Like, how do you navigate that? So, we've come from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, where that whole role of a man dramatically changed.
mm,
Um, and men were meant to be a certain way, but then women were demanding something different.
yeah,
And now we've got to this place where you've got to be masculine and strong and infallible and a provider and a leader and all those things, but then you've also got to be able to be vulnerable and to ask for help and to have a sensitive feminine energy about you and to listen. and, you know, be a good listener, don't be a fixer, wear moisturizer, look good, but then also you need to show emotion. Big boys don't cry, but then you're also meant to show emotion and wear your moisturizer and all of that stuff. Look good, and but still provide. And then, oh God, I don't know how you'd navigate that. I just don't. That's really confusing.
Well, thank you for that recognition, because as a dude, as you put it, in the automotive industry, as you know, the whole thing, the whole MENable movement has been born out of things that have happened to me earlier in the year that have caused me to start looking at all of this. And the more I look around, and you know, at first I thought it was just an age type thing, you know, midlife crisis stuff and all that we talk about, and realizing actually it's not. You know, it's
It's a
being
life crisis. Not, it
it's
doesn't matter
life.
when it happens.
Absolutely, and it's men of all ages, you know, from 18 upwards, and if not earlier at schools as well. And of course, it's not just related to men; it is, you know, it's women as well. It's life in
Yeah.
general, and that through MENable is what we're trying to address. So, you know, in terms of what you're doing, then I think we may have answered this a little bit, but um, you know, the free range life kind of thing. You know, what does the touch points for MENable on that then? What do you think, you know, we can do a bit more through the movement with what you're talking about?
It's a good question. I think, you know, I'm very much primed now to call out the bullshit.
Right,
If I'm
good.
allowed to say that on your
Yeah,
podcast.
of course you are. Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose I'm ultra sensitive to it now. So that kind of culture of, well, you know, that's just how it is here,
Mm,
or you know, just the excuses and that kind of stuff that leadership teams tend to give. Um, you know, I think it takes some balls, which
mm.
I, you know, I've got in a, you know, sort of mental format, if not any other, or, you know, in spirit. I've got spiritual balls that allow me
For
to,
what it's worth, I can vouch for that.
right. Yes.
That's probably going to make the minds boggle, isn't it? But how the hell does he know that? But I do know that you do have, yeah, fairly high spiritual balls.
You know, I've kind of got to this place where I'm prepared to have those difficult conversations, and I'm
Yeah.
also prepared to walk away if those conversations aren't welcome,
Mm, mm,
and if they're, you know, constantly deflected back again. I think as a, you know, as a movement, MENable wants to have those conversations, and that's what's massively attracted me to it. And yeah, I think you can, whilst the automotive industry is obviously very well established and there are certain cultural habits and behaviours that are entrenched, there is nothing stopping any member of that, you know, industry, any influencers within that industry, nothing stopping them from sitting there and saying, well, actually, let's do our own version of free ranging it when it comes
mm,
to
mm.
looking after our people.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I mean, you know, again, as somebody who's sort of been through the ranks a little bit, and you probably saw the podcast previously with Dash Gupta, who's the CEO of Marshall Motor Group. You
Yeah,
know, we were talking about how it's very easy for many leaders to get into positions and suddenly look around one day and go, how the bloody hell did I get here? How did that happen?
yeah.
You know, because we've been guilty of promoting on the basis of performance uh, or confidence rather than competence.
Hmm.
And what you end up with is people, you know, guys predominantly, because it's a very male dominated industry, getting to senior levels. And, you know, if they've not had the opportunity to address their thought processes, their issues, their, you know, mental health challenges, then, you know, that can bubble up and bubble over at any point.
Yeah, it can. And, you know, you see some pretty catastrophic and tragic effects of that.
Mm,
And I think people like Dash have really, you know, I was really impressed with his open heartedness
mm,
when it came to having that conversation. And, you know, people like him have got so much influence, and it only takes, you know, a couple of well-known people and well admired and respected people to start talking, and to start to make some change
Mm.
for potentially a whole tide of other organisations to come along too. It's
Yeah,
that sort
yeah,
of first follower ethos, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Early adopters, I think we call them in the.
Do we?
It's something
Uh, See,
apparently
that's just some jargon that I have no
marketing
clue
jargon. Yeah. All right, now Emma. I said at the beginning of this, you are actually one of the top coaches that I know. You've
you.
been influential in the MENable setup, and we've kind of affectionately nicknamed you the Chief Inspiration Officer. And I think you have another phrase, which is
I
what's the
can't
other?
remember what it was now. Was it Chief Kicker Up the Bummerer or
Chief.
something like
Well, I was going to say
that?
Chief
Sounds
Arse
really
Kicker.
rude. That sounds really rude. Let's edit that out,
Yeah,
please.
well, it might edit that bit out, but whatever.
No,
But no,
totally rude.
Chief Arse Kicker is
Chief
definitely the
arse
case,
kicker.
and yeah, you've been instrumental in that. So, um, from a point of view of if anyone having watched or listened to this now feels that they'd like to engage with you, either through MENable, which you obviously can do through menable.org, of course,
Cool.
or directly, what's the best way to get hold of you?
I'm always hanging out on LinkedIn. I'm a right
Mm.
LinkedIn lurker, so that's probably the best place.
I wonder what you're going to say then, because I've been called a LinkedIn slut.
What is it that you're doing that's giving you that
I have
nickname?
no idea, but it works for me. I don't care.
Each their own, love. But yes, I'm always on LinkedIn, so
Hmm.
people can connect with me. I don't have a sort of set of fiery hoops for people to jump through.
Right.
If they send me a request, if you look like a human being and not a bot, then I'll accept a request. So people
Yeah.
can feel free to do that and just message me. And I'm there. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone. I'm all about the sharing and the networking and seeing where conversations go with no particular agenda. I think is a
Yeah.
really good way to do things. So
Well, the whole point of MENable really is to enable guys predominantly, but not exclusively, in the automotive industry to reach out, talk about their mental health challenges and anything they've got going on, things they'd like to change in their life. And certainly, that whole point about having a free range life certainly speaks to me. Um, I found that maybe a bit, I was going to say too late, but it's never too late, is it? But I found that a little
never
bit
too
later than
late.
it. Exactly.
Never.
There could be other people who are, at a pivotal moment who might want to look at that as well. So you can contact us through the MENable movement or Emma directly. But all I would say is be prepared that unless you're ready to make some changes, you may not want to just talk to Emma just yet, because
Yeah,
you will
and
challenge people, won't you? That's
I
fair.
will, and I'm very gentle with people, as you
Mm.
well know,
No, I
Steve. And
do know. Yeah.
I give people what they're ready for.
Hmm.
Um, I am a nurturer,
Hmm.
but I'm also a, tough love as well. And
Yeah.
you've definitely experienced that, haven't you? And you've always been really responsive to, which has massively impressed me.
Oh, well, thank you.
Um,
Well, it's a two-way street, isn't it? I suppose it's about a sort of a chemistry between a coach and a coachee. And we don't want to limit people's audiences, do we? But at the end of the day, the first step to making a change is recognizing that that's what you want to do, isn't it? And do something about it.
yeah,
So
definitely. I think this, when I see a spark in people that, I see potential in people, and I see that there's something that they really want. It
mm,
doesn't matter what their circumstances are. There are ways and means of doing that, and it really just massively lights my fire to be able to help people to get to a place where they want to get to.
yeah.
But yeah, you've got to choose the right person to help you to do that, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I can vouch for you, Emma, of course. So just to finish up with, what would you say would be your 3 top tips for the MENable audience to help them in whatever place they're in to just start to think about or start to get some controls and actually sort of consider a free range life? What would be your 3 tips?
So I think my biggest tip, I guess, would be to figure out what your highest values are. So something that I have done work on in the past and that guides me, I guess, as a guiding light through everything, is figuring out what my top 3 values are particularly. So my top 3 values are connection, growth and joy. And what I always strive to do is to make sure that the majority of my life, if not all of it, and all the tasks and activities that I get involved in, align to those highest values.
Right.
And then the flip side of that is figuring out what your lowest values are and what you want to get away from. And if you're spending your life doing things that align to your lowest values, then that's when you need to massively reevaluate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's figuring out what they are, and they could be anything from health to family to, you know, it could be absolutely anything. And that's something that I help people identify as one of the early tasks on the Recode Your Reality program, which is the full program that I run. The second one, I guess, would probably relate to what I said earlier about finding a motivation that's bigger than you. So my motivation is to help people, you know, create the lives, to create the realities that they really want and that they deserve. And that's what drives me. For some people, it might be about being a role model to their kids. It might be about leaving a legacy that makes a difference in the world. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing, even if it's just going to the gym, if you're finding a higher motivation for that other than I just want to be a bit healthier or fitter, then that is the thing that will keep you going through the tough times. If you don't find that motivation that's bigger than you, you will fall at every hurdle. And then the third one would be related to the fear and that taking the leap. So there's a difference between noise and a signal. So a signal to me is your gut instinct. So I help people to connect to their gut instinct as well and to trust that. And when you get a signal, there is a way to recognize that is your, you know, gut instinct or your heart or your soul or whatever you want to call it, or your intuition telling you what to do or whether something's good or bad. What also then creeps in is the mind chatter. So that's the noise. And when people are thinking about creating a life that they want, what often happens is the noise kicks in. So they get the signal that says, oh wow, I've just thought of, you know, the thing that makes me happy. I want to go and follow that dream. And then the noise creeps in and goes, no, you can't, because fear. And actually it's our, you know, something I've learned through one of my idols, Peter Sage, is that that the mind's job is to keep us in the same place as we are, to keep us safe, to justify reasons why we are in this same safe, risk-free place. And that's the noise. And when that creeps in and overtakes the signal that's telling you where, you know, to follow your heart, that feels very, very different. And it's tuning into which is which, and then having the strategies and the discipline to listen to the right one.
Yeah. Wow. That's lovely. I love all of that. And for me, it was, you know, I was listening to that and listening to what you were saying about the noise. And I couldn't help thinking that for many of the people that I've come across over the years, and probably been guilty of this myself, when I've felt in that career cage, that's not because anyone's put me in that. It's purely because of the noise in my own mind that's kept me there or got me there. And you're absolutely right. You know, that what if and, you know, yes, but kind of mentality. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I now find it really frustrating when I'm talking to somebody if all I ever hear them say is yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. But
I
not
can't, but yeah, the reason I've not is
yeah. But I don't find it frustrating in an annoying way. I find it that I just want to then sort of help them and say, look, you know,
yeah.
get out of
Because it's
that.
sad, isn't it? You know, you and I are driven by wanting to see other people as happy as we are, I guess. And it's sad when you see people limiting themselves because of fear, and we recognize that because we've done that, you know, as individuals ourselves, haven't we, until recent times.
No, indeed, very much so. And some of us are still on that journey, aren't we? So, you know, as we all are, you know, every day's a school day, really. You know, none of us are fixed or cured or ready or whatever. We're just continually learning. So, Emma, I've absolutely loved having you on this podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it too.
I have, massively. I've no idea what I've said. I've waffled my way through it, but I'm sure there'll be something in there you can use.
don't worry. The editor is brilliant. No, we're well, as you know, we're aiming to go global with these podcasts at some point. So we'll get the word spread out. And as we've said, if anyone's got any questions or wants to come back to us, maybe you come back on a future podcast.
Of course.
Well, MENable Matters. If you want to know more, of course, you can join us on menable.org or any of the social media platforms. You can link up with those from the website. And as I've said, Emma is not just one of the coaches that we at MENable work with. She is actually one of the founder members of the MENable movement, and is our chief bum kicker. And I think you described it as something else, but we'll forget that for the time being. And so is going to be a regular feature as we grow the MENable movement. So, Emma,
so excited.
It is brilliant, isn't it? We can't wait. So thank you so much
to be part of it.
Oh, well, it's great having you on board. So thank you very much indeed. And we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.